Phonological awareness. Phonological and phonemic awareness are important because before children can learn phonics, which is a relationship between letters and sounds, they first need to become aware of the sounds that make up words. For example, in the word dog, they need to realize that D is the initial sound, A is the middle sound, and G is the ending sound. Phonological awareness is conscious awareness of the sounds of oral language. This includes awareness of individual words, awareness of when words rhyme, when words start with the same sound, the syllables that make up words, and, at the most advanced level, phonemic awareness, the awareness that words are composed of individual sounds and also the ability to manipulate those sounds. It's important to note that phonemic awareness is an auditory skill. You should be able to teach phonemic awareness in the dark. So why is phonemic awareness so important? Once children are aware of the individual phonemes that make up words, they can begin relating these sounds to the letters that represent them. For example, they can realize that the letter B represents the initial sound B in the word bag. So phonemic awareness is a true prerequisite to learning phonics. Because of this connection with learning phonics, it is not surprising that science-based reading research has revealed that a preschooler's knowledge of phonemic awareness is one of the strongest predictors in later success in learning to read. Children start by becoming aware of sentences and individual words within sentences. Then they move into learning about rhyme, when words end with the same sound, and alliteration, when words begin with the same sound. Next, they move on to being able to break up and put together the syllables of a word. Finally, they get to the stage of phonemic awareness, where they're dealing with the individual sounds that make up words. Well, why do we have to teach phonemic awareness? It is one of the most important early reading skills for children to master, and it is also one of the most difficult for children to learn. The reason is this: hearing the individual sounds that make up words is not easy. It's a very abstract skill. Phonemes are not physically distinct and isolated from each other when they make up a word. Instead, they're blended together into a solid stream of sound. For this reason, many children require direct instruction in order to develop phonemic awareness. I'm going to share with you several examples of how phonological and phonemic awareness skills can be taught to young children. We'll start at one of the most basic level, the awareness of words. Remember that old party game, telephone, where one person whispers a word into the ear of the person beside them and it goes around the circle? Well, that's a good example of how you can isolate a word and help children develop that kind of distinction. Other word awareness activities include having children make a specific movement when they hear a target word, like raising their hand if they hear the word dog, or having children segment sentences into words by clapping out individual words. So happy birthday would be happy birthday. Another way you can help children become aware of this abstract concept is to match words up with a manipulative, such as a unifix cube or another kind of marker. Now we're going to move one step up the developmental continuum to rhyme, the awareness that words end in the same sound. There are two major rhyming skills. The first is rhyme identification, in which children are able to identify when pairs of words rhyme. The second skill, which is more difficult, is called production. Here, children come up with other words that rhyme with a specific word. It's almost always more difficult to actually produce something rather than simply to identify it. Here's an example of rhyme production. We've got a little story here about 5 red apples, and the teacher may say, "Can you think of another word that rhymes with store and for?" And maybe the children would say door. How about a word that rhymes with tree and 3? Maybe they would say see. Do and to. Maybe they would say shoe. The next point we're going to talk about is that of alliteration. With alliteration, attention shifts from the ending sounds of words to the beginning sound of words. The words cake, kitchen, and corner all begin with the same sound. Notice that the focus is on the beginning sounds, that auditory skill, not the alphabet letters that represent those sounds. Alliteration identification requires that children are able to indicate what words start with the same sound and when they can find words that have the same beginning sound. For example, we could ask children to make an action such as clapping, standing up, or thumbs up when they hear a word that starts with the sound of the letter S. S. Or we could have them find pictures of objects that start with the S sound. Alliteration production, like rhyme production, involves children having to come up with new words. Here they have to come up with a new word that starts with a given sound. For example, we can ask children, "Can you think of other words that begin with a S sound?" Moving up another step on the developmental sequence comes awareness of syllables. Syllables are units of sound that make up a word. Every word has to have at least one syllable, and they usually contain more than one phoneme. There are also 2 different skills at the syllable level. Syllable blending is when children are presented with a word that is divided into syllables and then have to recognize the whole word. So, for example, I may ask my students to say the picture slowly, and they would say rabbit. And then I might say it fast, and they'd say rabbit. Say it slow, rabbit. Say it fast, rabbit. Syllable segmenting is where you give the children a whole word, and then they have to break it into syllables. So if I ask my children to look at this picture of a telephone, I may ask them to say it slowly for me. Telephone. Now we come to phonemic awareness, the most advanced level of phonological processing. Your students will have to deal with the individual sounds that make up words. Phoneme segmenting involves breaking a whole word into its original phonemes. For example, we might give the child the word hat and expect them to break it up into its individual sounds. One way to help make this more concrete for children is to have them move up a marker, like a chip or a Unifix cube, for each phoneme that they hear in a word. So in the example on your left, the child would push a cube into the first box for S, one for and one for N, sun. In the middle is a completed Elkanian box as an example so you can see how it would look. I also wanted to share another example because remember we're segmenting phonemes. So in the word sheep, there's 3 phonemes. One marker for sh, one marker for e, and one marker for p. Phoneme manipulation is the most advanced form of phonemic awareness. Here, children actually change words by adding, subtracting, or substituting sounds. It is a very advanced skill for preschoolers, but many of them are up to the challenge. In my sample here, a Batman chart that was created in a kindergarten classroom, the children were very actively and very interested in changing the phonemes to find out how many kinds of Batman they could make. And here they have for virtually every consonant in our alphabet, from Batman at the beginning to Zatman at the end. I would encourage children to play with language like this, and if they come up with a word that doesn't make sense, like Latman, I would call that a Dr. Seuss word, but not a real word, just to respect the fun and how important it is that they are manipulating language. We're going to end this portion with some concrete suggestions for you to use in your classroom to promote phonological awareness. These are the fun things that we do, such as finding those wonderful books that are written to play with language, engaging children in interacting with books by creating class books, and playing fun games where, again, they're playing with language.